All right. Well, welcome to Creekside Book by Book. Tonight we're going to be looking at Exodus 31 through 34. And over the last few weeks, we've been walking through the Mount Sinai experience with the people of Israel encountering the Lord on Mount Sinai, and then Moses going up and being with the Lord. And while he was there, he received the plans and saw that the tabernacle, like the vision of the tabernacle. So all the instructions, all the different required pieces, all of it. The Lord created the 10 Commandments. He said he was going to write out the law, the covenant on tablets earlier in Exodus. And so last week we ended looking at all the different elements and the priestly garments and what the incense and all of that different stuff. And so now we're picking up in verse 31, and we're kind of coming around the end and the corner to the end of Exodus. We have this week, and then our next session will wrap up Exodus. So we've been going pretty quick through this book, and next week we're going to get a lot of the repeat of the pattern of the tabernacle. And so just heads up, it's going to, or next session, we won't have group next week. I'll be out of town. Yeah, so let's just jump in, verse 1, 31, verse 1. Then the Lord said to Moses, "See, I have chosen Bezalel, son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, with understanding, with knowledge, and with all kinds of skills to make artistic designs for work in gold, silver, and bronze, to cut and set stones, to work in wood, and to engage in all kinds of crafts. Moreover, I have appointed Oholiab, son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, to help him. Also, I have given ability to all the skilled workers to make everything I have commanded you: the tent of meeting, the ark of the covenant law with the atonement cover on it, and all the other furnishings of the tent, the table and its articles, pure gold lampstand and all its accessories, the altar of incense, the altar of burnt offerings and all its utensils, the basin with its stand, and also the woven garments, both the sacred garments for Aaron the priest and the garments for his sons when they serve as priests, and the anointing oil and fragrant incense of the holy place. They are to make them just as I commanded you." So now the Lord has given the plans, he's given all the ingredients, he's done everything. And I don't know about you, but like thinking about Moses in this situation as he's getting all of this stuff basically downloaded from the Lord. He's like, okay, I got to get all these supplies. I wonder if Moses had a moment where he's like, but I'm a shepherd. Like, I don't know how to do any of these things. And this is one of the beautiful parts of this passage, of this whole book, is that the Lord says, I have chosen Bezalel, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, with understanding, with knowledge, and all kinds of skills. God knew that Moses couldn't build this, and so he shows us that he has already had a plan in place to have Bezalel lead the charge on the actual manufacture of all of this stuff. And even Bezalel is not alone. He's got a crew of people who are also skilled to do this. And the Lord is guiding the community to be able to make all of this happen, which is awesome. And in particular, we mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but I think it's important to note that that the Lord has filled Bezalel with the Spirit of God. When we talk about spiritual gifts, these are abilities that God makes possible by the Holy Spirit. And we see this in the New Testament, in the letters of Paul. He lists out different spiritual gifts. And one of those that is not on that list is crafting and building and all of this different stuff. And here we see that it should be included in the list of gifts that the Spirit gives to people. And what I say about spiritual gifts is that the Holy Spirit gives you the gifts you need when you need them. And this is one of those examples where Moses did not have these gifts. And the Lord's like, I'm not going to give you these exact gifts, but I'm going to bring along people who are gifted when you need these people with these gifts. And so today, in our own context, like, we should be praying for the Spirit to fill us, to give us the abilities we need to do the things he's calling us to do. But we also should recognize that we don't necessarily get all of the gifts as an individual, but the community has access to all the gifts of the Spirit. And so looking for ways to activate those gifts in other believers is a part of our job as disciples of Jesus today, is to just be able to like recognize the gifting of others and give them opportunity to serve in that gift as well. And so God here, the Lord lists out all the things again that they are supposed to build. And Moses is getting the list of all of the things that before wrapping up this section of the covenant establishment with Moses. And so he's getting all the different elements, all the different things, and being reminded that the Lord is going to make it possible for this to happen, and not in his own strength. Another thing that's interesting here is Bezalel is not a Levite. He's from the tribe of Judah. And so when we think about the tabernacle, the only people who, after the tabernacle is constructed, who are going to touch and interact with the elements of the tabernacle are going to be Levites. But in the manufacture of all of these things, the whole community is a part of it. And the leadership of the manufacturing is actually going to be from the tribe of Judah. So it's just an interesting little note there. And Bezalel's name, I thought it was interesting. His name in Hebrew means in El's shadow, and El is just one of the names uh, that people use to refer to God. Elohim is like the gods, and so in El's shadow is what Bezalel's name means, and I think that's kind of cool. So let's keep going. Verse 12. Then the Lord said to Moses, this is still up on the mountain, say to the Israelites, you must observe my Sabbaths. This will be a sign between me and you for the generations to come, so you may know that I am the Lord who makes you holy. Observe the Sabbath because it is holy to you. Anyone who desecrates it is to be put to death. Those who do any work on that day must be cut off from their people. For 6 days your work is to be done, but the seventh day is a day of Sabbath rest, holy to the Lord. Whoever does any work on the Sabbath day is to be put to death. The Israelites are to observe a Sabbath, celebrating it for the generations to come as a lasting covenant. It will be a sign between me and the Israelites forever. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day he rested, and he was refreshed. When the Lord finished speaking to Moses on Mount Sinai, he gave him the 2 tablets of the covenant law, the tablets of stone inscribed by the finger of God. So we got all of this instruction on how to build the tabernacle. And then right after that, we get in a note about the Sabbath, the day to rest. Now, something that Bible scholars have been writing a lot about lately is how the Garden of Eden, and creation itself is like a temple poem of sorts, looking at how God made all of the different elements of the world and populated the different elements of the world, because God, and then after God created, he rested on the 6th day. But one of the ways to think about resting is dwelling and abiding in the world that he created. And if the tabernacle itself is meant to be a place where the Lord would dwell and abide. And so looking at this parallelism of creation and then Sabbath, rest for the Lord, and then tabernacle, highlighting again, let's remember to rest, to Sabbath, because it's a time to dwell and abide and enjoy the creation that God has made. Another element of the Sabbath here is that's pointed out in this passage is that it is a sign of the covenant to you. And the you there is plural. It's the community of Israel. And so there's a couple signs to covenants. So like the sign of the Abrahamic covenant is circumcision. And so that's like an individual sign to this person that say, you are a part of this community. And so that's one sign of the covenant. But here the Sabbath as a sign for the covenant is the whole community committing together to say, on this day, we will do no work. And that is a sign for them, a reminder, like we're all in this together. But then it's also a sign to the neighbors that the people of Israel are different. They are standing out. They are taking a day to rest. And this, the consequence for breaking the Sabbath here, like if you do any work on the Sabbath, you shall be put to death. Now, one of the challenges is we don't really get a clear list of what qualifies as work throughout the law. The only thing that we really see as forbidden on the Sabbath is starting a fire, but that has made like some debate about what actually constitutes work on the Sabbath. And so that's why in Jesus's ministry, there's so much like argument with the religious leaders, because they were accusing Jesus and his disciples of working on the Sabbath when he healed people, when the disciples were getting the little grain snacks along the way. They were saying, you are breaking the Sabbath, and the penalty for breaking the Sabbath is death. And as I was preparing for this week, I was also writing, I do a daily devotional thing, and it was looking at that passage about breaking, that Jesus breaking the disciples breaking the Sabbath with the little grain, and then the debate that Jesus gets into with the religious leaders after that. It says after that, it says after this they plotted on how to kill him. And so you think like the Pharisees are just like the worst. They just want to kill Jesus. But if you go back to the law, they say, you look, you're breaking the Sabbath. And so in this very commandment, anyone who breaks the Sabbath shall be put to death. And so the Pharisees are taking this seriously because they believe Jesus has broken the Sabbath. But Jesus' response is, this is not work. Like this is not what the heart of the Sabbath is. Not you can't eat. And so he's trying to bring a little bit more clarity to the Sabbath. But the law here is essentially like stop working and rest and abide. And so that's the challenge then, is what is work? And that's where a lot of this debate is going to be for hundreds and hundreds of years after this moment with the people of Israel. We also see the two tablets of the testimony. God made them. This is where he said earlier when Moses went up to the mountain that he was going to give him the two tablets. And now he's actually doing that. He's giving the tablets to Moses. And when you picture the tablets, you might think like there's two of them. So maybe it's 5 commandments on one side and 5 commandments on the other side. But in truth, it's probably each one is a duplicate of each other. And so in the treaty making process, the greater party and the lesser party, so the suzerain and the vassal, they would both have a copy of the covenant, and they would take them back home to their palaces or their temples to ensure that they had this this binding contract, essentially. So the Lord is giving Moses Israel's copy and his copy, because one of those copies is supposed to go into the Ark of the Covenant. And that's why we call it the Ark of the Covenant, because the covenant tablet is supposed to go in there. And so these were carved by the hand of God. And so, so Moses has this. And so now he's going to turn his attention back home, back to the people. And that's where we pick up in 32. All the while, Moses is up on the mountain. This has been 40 days. Moses has been up on the mountain, and the people get antsy. And so we have a meanwhile back in the camp transition here that we need to make sure to recognize, like things are happening while Moses is on the mountain. All right, 32 verse 1. When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountains, they gathered around Aaron and said, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him." Aaron answered them, "Take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing, and bring them to me." So all the people took off their well, that's the wrong page, took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. He took what they handed him and made it into an idol cast in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. Then they said, "These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of the calf and announced, "Tomorrow there will be a festival to the Lord." So the next day, the people rose early and sacrificed burnt offerings and presented fellowship offerings. Afterwards, they sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in revelry. So this is let's keep in mind timeline here. Just a few months earlier, the Lord rescued them from slavery in Egypt. They saw his mighty power, the displays of his superiority over all of the gods of Egypt, and they are learning to trust him. They've seen God provide manna, quail, water from rocks. They've seen God do amazing things. Moses goes up the mountain, and there is a great cloud, great smoke, all kinds of things happening up there. And maybe about halfway through, they're like, "Wow, he's probably dead. We should figure out what to do. We're out here on our own." And so they go to Aaron, who has been basically the prophet for Moses, who's communicating and proclaiming the things of God. And they go to him and say, "Hey, you're next in line here. So God took Moses. So can you make us new gods? We don't know when Moses is ever going to come back. So make us a new God." And Aaron, in the text, Aaron very clearly here is saying, like, "Give me your gold and I will do this." And it's important because later they will, Aaron will try to shift the blame a little bit. But the goal here is like they want to have a representation of Yahweh to, like it says here, to go before them. And they know that part of what their future holds is going to be battle. It's going to be warfare, and so they need something to represent God for them. And so they make this calf, and a calf is, like, it is a part of the fertility and strength of the people. Even in like Joseph's dream, there are these cows coming out of the Nile, and healthy cows and sick cows, and like the healthy cows are a sign of 7 good years, right? And so the calf symbol would have been really well known as a sign of fertility, and yeah, so they're like, this makes sense. This wouldn't have been outside of their realm of what they would have experienced in Egypt, even in encountering with some of the peoples around Sinai. They probably would have heard of this idea, and so they do this. Aaron makes the calf, brings it out, and he says, "These are your gods. These are the gods who brought you out." And the one of the things that is happening here is there may be a little bit of um, derision happening in the writer, because the people of Israel are going to have uh, many temptations and failures when it comes to idolatry throughout their history. And so even if there were an editor who came back and like made this Elohim here, like this gods plural instead of just a singular, because even in the future, in 1 Kings 12, the kingdom is going to be split, and Jeroboam is going to build golden calves at the north end and the southern end of the northern kingdom to keep people from going to Jerusalem. And so like this struggle with idolatry is going to be a major issue for the people of Israel. And so even here, like there are some scholars who believe there's a little bit of editorial remarking by making this a plural. So let's keep going. So Aaron has built the calf. Verse 7. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go down, because your people whom you brought up out of Egypt have become corrupt. They have been quick to turn away from what I have commanded them, and have made themselves an idol cast in the shape of a calf. They have bowed down to it and sacrificed to it, and have said, 'These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt.' I have seen these people," the Lord said to Moses, "and they are stiff-necked." They are stiff-necked people. Now leave me alone so that my anger may burn against them and that I may destroy them. Then I will make you into a great nation. But Moses sought the favor of the Lord his God. Lord, he said, why should your anger burn against your people whom you brought out of Egypt with great power and mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to wipe them off the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce anger, relent, and do not bring disaster on your people. Remember your servants Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, to whom you swore by your own self, I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and I will give your descendants all this land I promised them, and it will be their inheritance forever. Then the Lord relented and did not bring on his people the disaster he had threatened. Moses turned and went down the mountains with the 2 tablets of the covenant law in his hands. They were inscribed on both sides, front and back. The tablets were the work of God. The writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. When Joshua heard the noise of the people shouting, he said to Moses, there's the sound of war in the camp. Moses replied, it is not the sound of victory. It is not the sound of defeat. It is the sound of singing that I hear. When Moses approached the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, his anger burned, and he threw the tablets out of his hand, breaking them to pieces at the foot of the mountain. And he took the calf the people had made and burned it in the fire. Then he ground it to powder, scattered it on the water, and made the Israelites drink it. So this is, not a great turn of events. The Lord is giving them the covenant. He's giving them instructions on how to worship properly. And while all of those instructions are happening, the people are already turning away from God. They've already given over to idolatry. And the way that the people respond to the calf is to go into revelry, which is drunkenness, uh, sexuality. There's all kinds of stuff that is tied in with revelry that is very tied to pagan worship. And so the people are running headlong away from God. And the Lord says to Moses as this is happening, look, that's already happening. And Moses makes the Lord makes an opportunity, a promise to Moses here. He's like, hey, let me destroy them and I will start over with you. Instead of descendants of Abraham, we'll make a new nation out of descendants of Moses. But Moses stands up for the people of Israel. And in doing so, he's also standing up for the Lord's reputation. Do not do this. Do not wipe them out, because it is you, Lord, and it is your name that will be tied to this. But instead, let's find a way out. Let's hold on to that promise to create a nation and they'll give the land to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. And so the Lord does relent. Moses has no interest in becoming a new Abraham. The Lord relented. He turned away from one path to go after a path of restoration. And so Moses is coming down with these tablets, and Joshua is just a couple levels down off the mountain here. And he's like, it sounds like they're fighting and there's war down there. But Moses is like, it's not war. It's not, they're not losing, they're not winning a war, but they are losing their faithfulness to the Lord as they are turning over to this revelry. And so when he finally gets to see what's going on and the dancing and all that they're doing in the golden calf, Moses throws the tablets down and breaks them. And this could be out of anger, but it's also an intentional thing that Moses is doing and saying, like, you have already broken this covenant. These tablets that are the covenant, you have already broken it. And so, Moses does not have clear instruction from the Lord to do that, but he does it. And then he destroys the calf, burnt it with fire, ground it into powder, and threw it in the water. Now, there's people who would say, like, he put it into a specific thing of water and he forced all the Israelites to drink it. But really, the goal here is probably not punitive, like drink this gold water, as much as to say, like, you are going to consume this water and then it will be processed through your body, and the gold and everything that had anything to do with the this idolatry will be processed out of your body through urine, feces, however they're going to do it. And it will then make anything remotely close to this golden calf unclean. It will be despised and despicable. And so it's not so much that he did this to punish the people as much as to desecrate the calf and all the elements that went into building the calf. So it's ruined permanently. Pick up in verse 21. He said to Aaron, "What did these people do to you that you led them into such great sin?" Right away, Aaron, I thought you had this under control. "Do not be angry, my lord," Aaron answered. "You know how prone these people are to evil. They said to me, 'Make us gods who will go before us.' As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what happened to him." So I told them, "Whoever has any gold jewelry, take it off." They gave it to me, gave me the gold. I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. So what is he doing here? He is shifting the blame. You know these people, they're terrible. And then even when I tried to, I just put a bunch of gold in the fire and a calf came out. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Clearly, Aaron is at fault here, but he wants to shift the blame. Does that sound familiar? Because all the way back in Genesis 3, when Adam and Eve ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they all shifted the blame. Adam, the woman you gave me. Eve, the serpent deceived me. Shift the blame, shift the blame, shift the blame. It is common practice in humanity. So Moses saw that the people were running wild and that Aaron had let them get out of control, and so became a laughingstock to their enemies. So he stood at the entrance to the camp and said, "Whoever is for the Lord, come to me." And all the Levites rallied to him. Then he said to them, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Each man strap a sword to his side, go back and forth through the camp from one end to the other, each killing his brother and friend and neighbor." The Levites did as Moses commanded. And that day, about 3,000 of the people died. Then Moses said, "You have been set apart to the Lord this today, for you were against your own sons and brothers, and he has blessed you this day." The next day, Moses said to the people, "You have committed a great sin, but now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin." So Moses went back to the Lord and said, "Oh, what a great sin these people have committed. They have made themselves gods of gold. But now, please forgive their sin. But if not, then blot me out of the book you have written." The Lord replied to Moses, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. Now, go, lead the people to the place I spoke of, and my angel will go before you. However, when the time comes for me to punish, I will punish them for their sin." And the Lord struck the people with a plague because of what they did with the calf Aaron had made. So Aaron, the punishment is not the drinking of the gold calf. The punishment is ultimately that the Levites are then sent to get people to stop the revelry, to stop worshiping the idol. And throughout the camp, there was probably some kind of ecstatic worship and revelry, sexuality, orgy type behavior happening. And so the Levites went through and were assigned to kill people engaged in this to get them to stop. And the tragedy is that 3,000 people died this day because of their wickedness and their idolatry. And so, the Lord, or Moses here, says, "Look, you guys are set apart to the Lord because you have committed to this, to do what God is calling us to do, to separate ourselves from idolatry and to hold the line." And it's not that people did not have the chance to turn away, because they did. Moses said, "Everybody who's with the Lord, come to me," and only the sons of Levi came. And so this is a this is a tragic story that ends in death of many people. But we also see that there's a restriction of judgment, because it could have been many more. And so 3,000 is a small number compared to the size of the camp. And so it could be evidence that people saw what was happening and they stopped pretty quickly. Um, but there is still a punishment here. and there's a plague that comes, and it sweeps through the camp, and we don't get exact number of how many people died from the plague in this section, but it was just one more sign that God's not messing around, and he takes these things seriously. So yeah, and one of the things the Lord says, like, prepare to leave this place, to leave this holy mountain, to go. My angel will direct you. But it picks up in verse 33. Then the Lord said to Moses, leave this place, you and your people, and the people you brought out of Egypt, or chapter 33, I should say, brought out of Egypt, and go to the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I will send an angel before you and drive out the Canaanites, Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. Go up to the land flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go with you, because you are a stiff-necked people, and I might destroy you on the way. When the people heard these distressing words, they began to mourn, and no one put on any ornaments. For the Lord had said to Moses, tell the Israelites, you are a stiff-necked people. If I were to go with you, even for a moment, I might destroy you. Now take off your ornaments, and I will decide what to do with you. So the Israelites stripped off their ornaments at Mount Horeb. One of the things that's interesting here is it reads like the Lord is speaking to Moses at this point, but the people also hear it, because they heard these distressing words for the Lord had said to Moses, in verse 4. So like they're still hearing God speak in this moment, is how it reads to me. And so he tells them, like, I'm going to send you out. I brought you up out of Egypt. I brought you here, and now you need to leave, but I'm not going to go with you, because I I am essentially, he's too holy for them, and he might destroy them. So he's going to send an angel, which is a messenger that will go before them. So instead of the actual presence of God that's going to lead them forward, the Lord is saying, I will send my messenger, my angel, to guide you. But this is hard news, because they want, like, the reason they built the calf is because they wanted the Lord to go before them. And now through their idolatry, they are risking even having the Lord go before them. And now they have an angel, which is a spiritual being, but it is not the same. They want God's presence. They are, they're like children who didn't realize there were consequences for their actions. And so they are mourning, and they take off all of their gold and jewelry, whatever they didn't give to Aaron. They take off and they go into this period of mourning. And the mourning is essentially like, we're sorry for what we have done. Please don't abandon us. And so while they are mourning, and we get this picture in verse 7 of what the normal pattern was, before the Lord brought Moses up to the mountain. When God would meet with Moses, or when Moses would meet with the people, he went out to this tent of meeting outside the camp. So verse 7. Now Moses used to take a tent and pitch it outside the camp some distance away, calling it the tent of meeting. Anyone inquiring of the Lord would go to the tent of meeting outside the camp. And whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people rose and stood at the entrance to their tents, watching Moses until he entered the tent. As Moses went into the tent, the pillar of cloud would come down and stay at the entrance while the Lord spoke with Moses. Whenever the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance to the tent, they all stood and worshipped, each at the entrance to their tent. The Lord would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. Then Moses would return to the camp, but his young aide, Joshua, son of Nun, did not leave the tent. So we're given this picture of what was the norm before Moses went up to Mount Sinai. And all of this stuff is happening like pretty quickly. So we're getting before God had this face-to-face encounter with Moses up on the mountain, they also had these encounters at this tent. And And some people are saying like, no, this is a delay pattern after the Sinai event. But I think it really is before, because it's asking like people would inquire of the Lord and they would go see Moses. And back in Exodus 18, when Jethro came, Moses' father-in-law, the people would come to Moses. And this is outside of the normal camp. This is outside of the way that the way the tabernacle was supposed to be set up. And so this is a before thing, not a after Sinai thing. And so it's like, how did Moses meet with God before? What do now, like, we might not even have that. We might not even have this encounter with the Lord in the tent. Like, he's not going to come with us. And so there we're getting this instance because there's a kind of a taking for granted of the Lord that I think the writer is trying to help us understand. And so um, there's also an interesting little note here that the Lord would speak to Moses face to face. So it was like a really close um, relationship is what's being communicated there. Um, and later we'll see that no one else. Moses has a unique relationship. None of the prophets are going to have that kind of relationship with the Lord. Moses was unique. They spoke directly. But then we also see an interesting little note. Moses' young age, Joshua, son of Nun, did not leave the tent. He would hang out there. He would stay there after Moses had left. So we see a little bit of an interesting relationship that Joshua had with the Lord even before Moses was getting close to his death. And so Joshua would eventually take over leading the people after Moses died, but he put in the time way before, as like being close to the presence of the Lord. Um, so we have this past explanation of how meeting the Lord happened, and then we're going to jump back to the present in verse 12. Moses said to the Lord, "You have been telling me, lead these people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. You have said, I know you by name, and you have found favor with me. If you are pleased with me, teach me your ways, so I may know you and continue to find favor with you. Remember that this nation is your people." The Lord replied, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." Then Moses said to him, "If your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here. How will anyone know that you are pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth?" And the Lord said to Moses, "I will do the very thing you have asked, because I am pleased with you and I know you by name." Then Moses said, "Now show me your glory." And the Lord said, "I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you, and I will proclaim my name, the Lord, in your presence. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion." But he said, "You cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live." Then the Lord said, "There is a place near me where you may stand on a rock. When my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft in the rock and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand, and you will see my back, but my face must not be seen." So Moses has gone back up the mountain, right? And it's like, okay, you want us to leave, but we're not gonna have that cloud of pillar the pillar of cloud anymore. Like, how are we gonna know what we're gonna do? Like, if your presence is with us, we cannot go. We need you. And so here we see the Lord relents, not because Israel is so good, but because the Lord knows Moses. He knows, he says, I know you by name and I speak to you face to face. And so, again, Moses is trying to appeal to God's glory. Like, if you don't go before us, like, you all of us will be wiped out. What will distinguish the people of Israel from other nations? Like, we need you, and we recognize this. And so Moses is leading the way in corporate repentance. The people are not quite there yet. They're still terrified of all that God is doing, but Moses is interceding for them, which is one of the key roles of the priests. One of the key roles of prophets is interceding for the people and lifting up the ways of God. And so yeah, so God's relenting. And then Moses has a big request. Let me see your glory. And the word for glory is kavod, which means weightiness. Let me experience your glory, see your weightiness, see your full presence, not just a voice in the cloud, but who as you actually are. And the Lord says, no, you can't do that and expect to live. A few chapters earlier, Moses and the elders, they had the meal with the Lord, and they saw basically his feet. They saw they saw what is under the Lord, but they did not see the fullness of the Lord. And so here Moses is asking for the fullness of the Lord's glory, and the Lord says, no, but I'll pass by and I'll let you see where I had been. Um, so like it's not like necessarily like you're just going to see my back, but it's like you'll see where I passed is more the idiom that's happening there in the language. So he would get some kind of sense of the glory of the Lord departing, moving away from him. So he would just have just that sense of the manifestation of God's glory being there. So that's the middle ground that the Lord makes possible for Moses. Chapter 34. The Lord then said to Moses, chisel out two stone tablets like the first ones that the Lord made for him, and I will write on them the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. Be ready in the morning, and then come up on Mount Sinai. Present yourself to me there on top of the mountain. No one is to come with you or be seen anywhere on the mountain. Not even the flocks and herds may graze in front of the mountain. So Moses chiseled out two stone tablets like the first ones and went up Mount Sinai early in the morning as the Lord had commanded him, and he carried two stone tablets in his hands. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and stood there with him and proclaimed his name, the Lord. And he passed in front of Moses, proclaiming, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children and their children for the sins of the parents to the third and fourth generation. Moses bowed down to the ground at once and worshiped. Lord, he said, if I have found favor in your eyes, then let the Lord go with us. Although this is a stiff-necked people, forgive our wickedness and our sin, and take us as your inheritance. So this is where the glory of the Lord is actually happening, this whole experience. It's interesting. The Lord says his name. And as you read through, you know, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love. Like it almost reads like all of this is his name. All of these characteristics explain who God is. And you'd be hard pressed to say like that's actually his name, but it's like all of his titles, all of his descriptions. This is all important to know who God truly is for the people. And again, Moses says, "Go with us. Don't leave us. Don't abandon us. Um, let us take us as your inheritance. We are your people." And again, Moses is interceding for them. Verse 10, then the Lord said, I am making a covenant with you. Before all your people, I will do wonders never before done in any nation in all the world. The people you live among will see how awesome is the work that I, the Lord, will do for you. Obey what I command you today. I will drive out before you the Amorites, Canaanites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. Be careful not to make any treaty with those who live in the land where you are going, or they will be a snare to you. Break down their altars, smash their sacred stones, and cut down their Asherah poles. Do not worship any other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. And so this is where we start to see like what is actually going to be the terms of the covenant. Like all of this would be part of the suzerain vassal treaty. Like the powerful king would give all these terms, all these descriptors, and all of these commands for the people to follow. And so we are not getting necessarily the whole picture of the covenant here, but we are getting these little what technical terms would be inclusios, little hints about what the whole covenant entails. And we're going to see some things that we've already read from the Ten Commandments, and we've already read in the law about the festivals. All of these things are happening, and they're being indicated here in this next section. But what is highlighted in the temple or in the covenant piece here is about worship. Because remember, they just failed to worship God properly with the golden calf. And so now the covenant highlights here are focusing in on how to rightly worship the Lord. So even like going into the land and not making treaties with the people there is because of their idolatry. They will lead the people of Israel away. And that is what God is calling. And so when God is saying, I am a jealous God, it's not saying like his feelings are hurt. Like "Oh, why aren't they hanging out with me?" Like that kind of like human jealousy. It's exclusive. I am an exclusive God. And I am putting my name on you, Israel. And there's only room for my name, nobody else's name. And so there's an exclusive nature to God's jealousy. So, verse 15, be careful not to make a treaty with those who live in the land, for when they prostitute themselves to their gods and sacrifice to them, they will invite you, and you will eat their sacrifices. And when you choose some of their daughters as wives for your sons, and those daughters prostitute themselves to their gods, they will lead your sons to do the same, which is what happened in the people of Israel when they would eventually be in the land and they would take foreign wives. And so the Lord, as we read through this, when he says like don't intermarry between different nationalities, it's not about race or like ethnicity, it's about religion, it's about idolatry. And so we always need to keep that in mind. Like the nations were always welcome to come and join the people of Israel to be covenant partners with Yahweh, but Yahweh was not allowing the people of Israel to go and make covenants with the other idols and false gods of their neighbors. Verse 17, do not make any idols. Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread for 7 days. Eat bread made without yeast. That's that matzah. As I commanded you, do not do this at the appointed time in the month of Aviv, for in that month you came out of Egypt. The first offspring of every womb belongs to me, including all the firstborn males of your livestock, whether from herd or flock. Redeem the firstborn donkey with the lamb, but if you do not redeem it, break its neck. Redeem all your firstborn sons. And the firstborn of the flocks, um, the donkey was a work animal. And so they would sacrifice a lamb instead of the donkey so that they could continue to work. But there is not a call here in this section to sacrifice firstborn sons. Instead, a lamb would take their place as well, or an animal of some sort would take the place of the firstborn sons. And we will read more about that in Leviticus. No one is to appear before me empty handed. So when they come to offer sacrifices, they're supposed to bring their offering, not to say, I don't have anything, Lord, because God is going to provide for them. And so they will have opportunity to worship God through sacrifices. 6 days you shall labor, but on the seventh day you shall rest. Even during the plowing season and harvest, you must rest. And so one of the reasons why there are these festivals that we're going to look at here is because it forces the people to actually take the time to rest during first fruits and during the Feast of Tabernacles, and those are harvest seasons when things are happening. And it's like, no, you're going to rest here. You're going to take the time to abide, to dwell. Celebrate the Festival of Weeks with the first fruits of the wheat harvest and the Festival of Ingathering at the turn of the year. 3 times a year, all your men are to appear before the sovereign Lord, the God of Israel. I'll drive out nations before you and enlarge your territory, and no one will covet your land when you go up 3 times each year to appear before the Lord your God. So God's taken away the excuses. If you are faithful, if you are doing these celebrations, no one's going to come and take your land. I will make sure of it. Do not offer blood of sacrifice to me along with anything containing yeast, and do not let any of the sacrifice from the Passover festival remain until morning. Bring the best of the first fruits of your soil to the house of the Lord your God. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. Then the Lord said to Moses, write down these words, for in accordance with these words, I have made a covenant with you and with Israel. Moses was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights without eating bread or drinking water, and he wrote the tablets, the words of the covenant, the 10 commandments. So they are restarting the covenant here. As I said, all of these different elements are focused in on how to worship the Lord rightly, having just been caught red-handed, not worshiping the Lord rightly. And so that is a key part of what is going on, why only those things are listed. But as we are looking at all of God's commands and what he's calling them to do, like he is saying, like, if you follow these commands, I will protect you. I will watch over you. And so offering these sacrifices, offering these times of worship at the festivals and like the Sabbath day, all of these different things. Like if you will do this, I will show you that I am faithful. And so that's going to be one of the major struggles for the people of Israel is to worship the Lord the way God has called them to. And so we are going to see that over and over again with the people of Israel. But um, what is most amazing is God's faithfulness and graciousness with these folks because they keep turning away. They are a stiff-necked people, but the Lord continues to be gracious. Um, so there's one more section because the Lord here's God telling them all that, or telling Moses all that what he's going to do. He's up there 40 days, 40 nights, no food, no water. Moses is now chiseling out the the um the covenant on these tablets, so he has to do two of them with the full covenant on both tablets. And so it's going to take some time. The first time God did it, this time Moses has to do it. So verse 29, when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the two tablets of the covenant law in his hands, he was not aware that his face was radiant because he had spoken with the Lord. When Aaron and all the Israelites saw Moses, his face was radiant, and they were afraid to come near him. But Moses called to them. So Aaron and all the leaders of the community came back to him and he spoke to them. Afterward, all the Israelites came near him, and he gave them all the commands the Lord had given him on Mount Sinai. When Moses finished speaking to them, he put a veil over his face. But whenever he entered the Lord's presence to speak with him, he removed the veil until he came out. And when he came out and told the Israelites what he had been commanded, they saw that his face was radiant. Then Moses would put the veil back over his face until he went in to speak with the Lord. So Moses comes down off the mountain, just really shiny, uh, blindingly radiant. And so the people they're afraid. They can't even look at him. But there's an interesting thing that is part of the tradition that comes out of this. And I had the book here. Okay. There's this idea that, uh, light comes out of Moses, right? And so there's a tradition of Moses's horns. Um, the radiance of God is reflected in the shining texture of Moses' face when he returns to the tablet of the law. Although he is first unaware of this, the phenomenon, Moses and the people recognize it as evidence of Moses had direct contact with God, and so that's why he wears this face. But in statues of Moses, um, it's really hard to to display that this is light coming out of Moses. And so it actually, like, if you look at this picture, this is a statue of Moses. Um, this is the radiance of Moses. It's little horns. So if you see a statue like that, and you're like, why does Moses have horns? That's why. I just wanted you to know that. And this is a little book called The Gospel According to Moses, and it is quite good. Um, so, but here we have this presence of God, and the presence of God that is displayed through the radiance of Moses is essentially confirming his leadership as a role and his role as an intermediary between uh, God and the people. It confirmed Yahweh's presence, the very thing that Moses was so passionate about. It confirmed Yahweh's greatness and like how awesome God is. And if Moses is this awe-inspiring, just being with God, how much greater is God? It reminded all those who seek constantly for ever closer relationship with God that one can actually have so close a connection with the one and true and living God that one may not even notice the extent of the effect. Because so Moses was kind of oblivious to his own radiance because this is just how life is with Moses and the Lord. And then later in 2 Corinthians 3, we'll see that um, the glory that Moses had, it lasts, but it also, in the new covenant, that same glory, we can have that kind of relationship with God now in the new covenant, but in Moses, that glory faded over time. And Moses wore the veil longer than he needed to wear the veil because the glory faded off of his face. So, so we have one more session in Exodus, and so that'll be in 2 weeks, and we'll wrap up 35 through 40. So it's going to be a longer section, but it will be focusing in on the actual building of the tabernacle. So we went through a lot tonight, but are there any questions on these sections? Thoughts, questions? Ready, go.
I thought it was interesting when God is telling Moses about these people that you brought out of Israel.
Right.
Kind of a parent going, well, that's your son who did this,
Yeah.
And Moses reminded him that it's your people that you brought out of Egypt. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that is a fun little note. That if you read the Bible and you don't see things like that as kind of humorous, like you're reading it wrong. Like it is kind of funny. Like your son did this. It's like, well, no, we made this son. So yeah. But again, Moses is appealing to God's glory in those things. Whenever that happens, he's like, no, remember you are glorious. If you abandon these people, your glory is going to be is not going to be glorious anymore.
Right.
And so yeah. Good note, Christy. Anything else that stood out or things you found interesting? Questions?
I thought it was interesting. I've always wondered why it was a golden calf that Aaron would build for the people. So it's interesting just to hear the symbolism of why it would be something that people would recognize.
Yeah, it is weird from our perspective because we don't worship cows the way they did, or the way the ancient world did. Like our livelihood, most of us, our livelihood is not based on cattle. But for the ancient world, like the calf was a sign of wealth. It was a sign of fertility. It was all kinds of weighted meaning in like a calf and a cow. And so so that it wasn't just like Aaron's explanation is a calf came out, but Aaron knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Like it says, like he formed it. He used a
He
tool
made
to
it with
chisel it.
tools. Yeah.
Yeah. So Aaron can be a real wuss sometimes. Like, I don't know, don't be mad at me, Moses. And Moses is the younger brother. Let's keep that in mind. Aaron is the older brother here. So I just find that hilarious as well. There was something in my notes I wanted to make. About the calf, but no, I don't. Maybe I highlighted it, but I didn't copy it into my notes. But yeah. I just want us to note, like, if you stick with us through book by book, and we get all the way into First Kings and Second Kings, and we see these, the idolatry coming back, this is like, there's going to be so much stuff in the Old Testament that like finds echoes back into the Pentateuch, back into the Exodus event, and it's important to like be able to make those hyperlinks in our mind as we read. And so like even as you're reading through like devotionally, to think about like when the writer that in whatever passage you're using uses the specificity of like rams or goats or bulls and like different idols, all these different things, like try to hyperlink back to like, where did I see this before? Because it's this cycle of rebellion that the people keep falling into. that is helpful to remember. Like, God forgave them before, he will forgive them again. And even in discipline, he is doing a work of restoration for the people. So like the Jeroboam idols that he builds instead of letting people go and worship in Jerusalem. So Bethel and Dan, there's these two Jeroboam, so north and south. He's trying to make it easier for people to worship instead of going to Jerusalem and maybe staying in Jerusalem. He wants to keep them in his own little kingdom. So, yeah, First Kings is crazy. I'm excited. Every time I look to the future of the Bible here from where we're at right now, I'm just like, man, it's gonna be so fun. There's gonna be so much fun stuff. So, yeah. Anything else? No. Awesome. Well, y'all, this is Exodus is a rich book, and I know we're going really quick, but I really do want to going over large sections like this. I feel helps give us the sense of the story and the narrative of what's going on, and so seeing like how closely the false idols and the golden calf with the tabernacle instructions, like how closely that's happening, the breaking of the covenant, remaking the covenant, all of these things are happening like in days of each other, not like months of each other. And I find that to be important as we're reading through. Like it's not like they had a long path of faithfulness to the Lord. They didn't. It was not long at all. So yeah, well, y'all have a wonderful night and a good week. It's crazy, it's still light outside, so
Beautiful.
Yeah.
you know, go
Nice.
walk your dogs and stuff. I don't know. So all right, well, you guys have a good week.
Thank you.
Blessings
Thank
to you, Jason.
You have a great time
You
at your
too.
conference.
Oh, so great.